Hey everybody, welcome to Conscious Talk TV, and I have Rick Jewers back with me again, Divine Being of High Order. Hey everybody's going to be joining us and tuning in. We are going to talk about empaths and the present energies. We're going to talk about the present energies first, and then we're going to talk about the empaths. And Rick and I were just having some really very cool conversations before we got started. So, with that being said, I want to talk because you posted something a little bit ago. Well, not a little bit, but a few hours back, and about the next level. And we were talking because you had mentioned about me taking a deep breath, and you said this is like the next level. So let's talk about the present energies if we can. So I know they're always changing, and a lot of new stuff is coming up.
Ah, okay. And thank you so much for being here and love to all of the viewers. And yeah, okay, the present energies, we should go back. There was a significant shift again. It was perhaps a couple weeks ago now, and I'd put it out in an update. And what that shift involved were uh, many clearing situations brought up for each on an individual basis. And once again, they were tested with, the last things they need to get out of the way for to shift them to the other levels. Now, it's not each one is unique also within their levels, but you will have, let's say, groups that are ready to go through that threshold today, and perhaps one day later you got some more that are going to come trickling through. But all in all, the whole process is all the unity with it, and we all get through it. So the current energies is such that in the last few days, and but we should be coming out of that very shortly, or just hold on, maybe not. This may exist for another day or two. That we need to get these out of the way, these negative, the way you respond to something that you would consider bad. You need to master and take control over it in such a way that it is not controlling you to make you sad, to make you angry, or any of these. So you're being tested with these 3D, 4D things, if you will. And it's also to enable you to more readily detach from it, know that it's nonsense, and that you're not to energize these sort of things, because we do not want these where we are going up in here in the 5D. We are creating the 5D, which is imperfect, as the most perfect harmony as we can create. And for each, the most perfect harmony is void of all of these negative karmic things, whatever way you wish to label it. So, having said that, before we rise uh, to those levels, before each one rises, they do need to do that inner clearing, and they need to check their acts and their reactions to outside events. Now, this does not mean that these outside events will go in the near future, but what it does mean is that you are more evolved to actually affect these outside events once you're empowered enough to begin to diminish them and change the polarity of them. And this is where we are going in this next level. There are certain angels that are ready to begin to affect the energies in the events, in the outside experiences. And this is taking on a much higher discipline. So to be disciplined and be responsible with that great prowess of being part of the overall energetic stream which creates everything, you have to be disciplined and you do not wish to be entering remnants of negativity or darkness into your new creations. So, having said that, we are getting prepared, and yes, there was more tests again, and one said, I thought we were done with this BS and all of this. Well, hey, guess what? No, you got to keep, practice makes perfect there, right, until you get it right. So essentially that's been occurring, and his dead father just said another 2 to 3 days perhaps for some, uh, because what will happen is that they don't get over the test until they pass it. So if they don't do the correct things and act and react from a place of mastery and from a higher level of consciousness, if they don't do that, they'll keep it there. So they need to use their divine intellect to dissolve it and to rise above it. And that more so is a graduation point for that level. Then they're ready to take on a more substantial role in creating the new timelines. Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes, yes. So in the clearing, because so you're talking about the remnants. So we need to really clear these remnants because we know that in the 5D and above, we can't have anything negative go up. We've got to clear all that. So any other suggestions on clearing that, like how to handle that? So instead of reacting, we talked a little bit earlier about just, you kind of laughing at it, realizing that it is a reality, but it's not a reality.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the first thing to do, let's say if you're subjected to a negative 3D thing before you, first thing to do is you got heads up, you know where you're at. Just go into a straight state of neutrality and just slow down and just remember what you were taught, learned, what you had learned, and apply your divine knowledge. Don't go about trying to resolve the problems the way you did from the old human ways. You are now equipped with a much higher intellect, and you also know that you can, uh, let's say, tweak up energetics. So you want to change the polarity of these, and you can interject from your higher perspective into it the positive polarity, and use whatever comes to you. Trust what you feel you should use to dissipate it, but and always understand that it has no control over you. You have your divine sovereignty to rid these things, and that is you. You are a divine vessel, and you're being more empowered to be effective in doing just that. So you just take a moment when faced with it, and no rush. You just sit back, analyze it, and but also analyze it from your higher perspective. So you need to disassociate yourself with the negativity that's attached to it. Just separate yourself from it so that you can integrate your pure stream of divinity and your intellect and your higher self. Then you approach how you wish to uh, disintegrate it or dissipate it in whatever manner.
Yeah. Now you
Yeah, now you
mentioned
mentioned
2 to 3 days.
2 to 3 days. Father said
That we've got to
that
go
we've
through
got to
this. Why is it? I mean, what's going to happen after the 2 to 3 days?
Okay, what we are going through right now. Now, understand, please, that it's 2 to 3 more days of it that's set up, but it's per individual. There are individuals that don't need to go through any more
Mm-hmm.
of that, but there are some that do. So, what I'm saying is that the atmosphere is ripe for those that need to go through these to look at them before we shift to this next higher level. So, some there may not be anything happen around them because they have mastered what they needed to for this level. But
Mm-hmm.
for others, if it keeps popping up, well, this is how you address it, and You use your prowess to flip it over and just get it out of the way. I know it's simply said, but it's also simply done when you stand in your belief of what you are and your trust of all things and just do it. Don't question it. Then you'll see
Yeah.
your results very quickly. You might say, "Wow, did I do that?" Yeah, you did.
Yeah, right. And like you said, it's about trusting, and it's, trusting yourself and trusting your intuition, trusting all of that to be able to dissipate.
Well, yeah, exactly. The trust is
Yeah.
so important in
Yeah.
unquestioning it because, before in the lower dimensions, 3D or 4D, you really not had a reason to trust so much because you tried different things then and it would not work. It seemed like, the stuff would hit the fan. And, but you need to be reminded, we are in higher vibratory times, higher frequency, that now that those same things that occurred before that you had no power over, you're up here. Now you do have power over them. We are in unprecedented times, and all of your uh, gauges, scientific gauges or what have you, like the Schumann resonance, you know, uh, things like these, they will all show you that we're in unprecedented times, that it is so. And these are the times we are in with these higher energetics. So it's the time now to do what strengthens you beyond is
Hmm.
believe in magic now. Before
Hmm.
you doubted it, but now you need to believe. And you also need to do that because it's part of your creation abilities. If you don't believe, then you have doubt, which is negative, and you will not create efficiently.
Yeah, and we
And
definitely want to create.
yeah, yeah. So there is a sense of purity, but each one's purity is received for themselves through their guidance, what to follow. If they're listening to someone, if it resonates, follow that. And for someone, if they're listening to and it does not resonate, don't follow that. Follow what feels right. And again, it's always so important for each one to do that because there is an individual basis with this. So many are at different levels, and what may apply for one will not apply for another. But hey, everyone is correct. There is no wrong with it. It's just that you're at different levels, and because of the individuality, you need different things at certain times. But it all converges up here.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And in your post a few hours back, you also mentioned about food, for the human
Mhm.
vessel, and really, making sure what we're taking in. So not only, outwardly taking things in and whatever's coming at us, but also internally. Can you touch on that?
Yes, indeed. That's so important, for newer ones awakening as well to get them through long periods of discomfort by knowing simple things, what to do with their physical vessel
Mhm.
to assist in the evolution of their physical vessel, in the DNA restructuring. If they do and eliminate these chemicals, then they go through it much quicker. And on one extremity of that, with especially one very divine comrade of high prowess to me, she very rarely has any discomfort, when they're getting bombarded by these ascension symptoms because she has taken good care of her body. She watched what she ate, she watched what she drank, and, she is almost unaffected unless it's a very severe thing that's affecting everyone. but it
Mm.
is important what you eat and drink. Now, also, there are some that are powerful in blessing the foods and things that they drink. So, some, once they're strong enough, their diet may not be rate clean, but their energetics is strong enough to turn off any adverse effects that it may have. For instance, I sometimes can go into a coffee shop, uh, to have a tea or a coffee. But in that water, there is a bit of chlorine that is toxic. And I do feel it, but I can use my energetics to quickly get it out of my physical vessel later. I am well adapt at that process. But with other ones that are trying to raise up quicker, it will take more of their energy to try to energetically correct their body, where it's much easier if they just don't put the chemicals in there and just leave the chemicals absent, and as they get stronger, then they can more readily and quickly clear out those remnants. And through that process, bleeding, sweating, and all of these other things, um, when you're going through, let's say, an ascension clearing of sorts, you will find yourself using the washroom more often and sweating more profusely, and all of these. And they are also your soul in connection with your body, helping you to purify the body by putting the toxins out through these sort of ways. But it is important, yes, it is, because also what happens with the chemicals, they act as a dampening field and also a short circuit in your energetic fields. What you really need in these physical vessels is good, pure water, because water is an electrical energetic conductor, and you want that in, and it makes you most powerful. But if you have a bunch of sludge in your water, it's not as good as a conductor. You wish to keep it as pure, because that is also connected to your prowess, how strong it will be.
Now, we had a question about can you recommend any water? Which is a great question. Thank you.
Okay,
A good
one
source of
important.
clean water.
Yeah. What I suggest for any out in rural areas, find your little narrow streams, underground streams perhaps, that come out from a hill with nothing built up above them to contaminate the water. Also, look at the water for, the color, if it's clear, but also look at the pebbles that are in that water
Mhm.
source. You wish to have what would be a lighter color, white color sort of pebbles, because what you wish to have is the alkalinity. But if you get a little stream that you get water from that you see rust colored rocks in there, or iron, or yellow, avoid that. It's sulfates. Sulfates are toxic to the human vessel. And again, so many sulfur drugs are made, very toxic to the human vessel. So find a good stream, but also, hey, a lot of you are strong enough now. You just say, look up, connect, please guide me to the best stream. So you're not around the side of a hill for hours trying to find out what's the good water. You always got your connection with that.
Yes.
So alkaline water is also important when you are living in towns, but because you want to get rid of that chlorine. You don't wish to have that, and they put that in many water supplies. But
Yes.
we have made huge advancements with this. That I believe a few days ago, perhaps one of the huge lawsuits against a facet of the U.S. government is perhaps going to occur with the city or what have you, in their water supply, putting this chlorine in, saying it's cleaning the water, when actually it's a toxin that
Yeah.
accumulates in the human body over time. So it's important, stay away from acidic water, alkaline water. is the best.
Now, somebody had mentioned they're in the UK, but like, what do you think about bottled water? And of course, like you said, we can go ahead and
Well,
use.
Well, again, I'm always open and honest with this. Be careful with the bottled water. It may say it comes from a natural spring,
Mhm.
but if you open that up and if you smell it, it's not. And the best way to do this is to connect with your divine guidance and your heart and learn how to choose the water that on your shelf of your store, the water that is actually the best that you could have from that store. So be very, are we still here?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So yeah, be start using your divine gifts and assisting with this. You are no
Mhm.
longer alone as a human to make choices when you walk in a store to get water and you look and they all look good. Well,
Yeah.
what you do is you begin to connect to your higher source to assist you with this so that you don't have to stand there for an hour trying to guess which water is good. Use your divine gifts, your heart, and your connection to source to assure that you're getting a better quality.
Okay, what if you have somebody that's not in that space?
Well, I will put it this way: if they're not in that space, they're not ready to be in that space. For any that's watching it, they'll begin evolving to use these techniques and to also accept and understand that the water that they drink is important. So,
Yes.
for anyone watching this, they would not even be watching this if it's not pertinent for them to
Mhm.
watch their intake of waters
Mhm.
and foods.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to go back to the chemicals because, as we know, there's so many chemicals in foods and just the drinks that we drink and things like that. So how can we avoid? I know we can go back and just, use our energy, the energetics to help with that. But I mean, do you see anything changing with that, or like what can we do with that?
Uh, well, what I do see, I monitor that. It's part of why I'm here on the surface. I occasionally
Thank
check
you.
stores and areas, and what we are seeing is that the progression towards the natural foods and the better chemical free, non GMO, all these things, and anyone I believe can attest to this. If you just imagine your favorite shopping store 10 years ago and imagine
Mhm.
it now and look at how there's organic produce parts
Yeah.
are appearing, becoming bigger. You'll have several, a couple aisles at least, allocated to natural foods where you did not have these before, that you
Mhm.
would usually have to get a specialized natural food store. But
Yeah.
what you're seeing in the supermarket chains, that they are implementing that, they are putting it there. It's getting bigger because it's also tuned in to the 5D, where the awareness of how important better food is it's expanding. So your stores, your big stores have to keep up to this to keep
Yes.
sort of in business. It's not, let's say, it may not be at that level now, but they knew ahead of time what was
Mhm.
coming, that these chemicals and all these foods, processed foods, and your processed pastas, all of that stuff is on its way out. As soon as
Mhm.
poverty is taking out of here, you will have no more foods like that. And also in that capacity, and it's been shown, I believe, down, I believe it might have been California, where, already there is a massive uh, greenhouse greenhouses set up on a property, and if I remember correctly, they can produce enough food just on that very
Wow.
small property to feed a small city for 1 year, like with produce. So,
Oh my
having
God.
said that, we don't need,
Mhm.
and organically as well, and we don't need what everyone thinks we need, fields and all lots of land to do this stuff. It can be done, mostly well, wheat, you need for good wheat and corn, you need bigger fields. But what I'm saying, for the actual other produce that we use, you don't need big areas. These can be grown healthily and efficiently and organically in greenhouses, and it's amazing food. And
Mm.
for I'm an empath, but I can go and, let's say, get a tomato that's just on a grocery store shelf, and I can go into a green field, a greenhouse, and get an organic tomato, and there's 10 times the energy and flavor with this. And you even get, for me, I get a power boost from it, where I'll eat one of these tomatoes in a grocery store that it's just bland, like if you just ate a piece of paper. So, but
Yeah.
anyways, I was carrying on. Did I answer the question?
Yes, no, but you're never carrying on. It's always good to expand on that and share with us. No, no, absolutely. So, with that being said, my next question is, because we've got paleo, we've got vegan, we've got raw, and I know the processed foods. I mean, that I stopped eating processed foods and anything with gluten, even though I'm not gluten tolerant, but, just because of how I feel when I would eat stuff. So that really
Mm-hmm.
goes into consciously being aware, right, of
Yeah.
what we're eating. So if this is processed foods, and somebody once told me that if you eat something, wait 20 minutes later and see how you feel. And if your stomach starts doing this,
Yeah.
that's not good for you. And that's the same thing with a person. Wait 20 minutes after you've been with that person and see how energized you feel, or if you feel really low in your energy. That kind of will tell you something about that. So,
Perfect. Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, there's so much out there for us. And so, I know it's really your body that could say, yes, this is for me, or no. I mean, what do you suggest? Myself, I kind of do a
Well,
little bit of everything, but yeah.
well, that's good. And again, everyone is unique in their advancement, and there are some that they advance quite far, let's say by eating meat, and there's others that could not to advance. But there's that individual basis that you follow what you feel you need. And let me say, it is really nothing set in stone, other than, as you expressed, your feelings to know what you should eat and what you should not. But having said this, there is also an overruling soul aspect of your higher self that's up here, that will assure you get the right things when you need to. And if you're not fully in tuned with that, for example, you buy a bunch of peanuts and you're not supposed to have them, like you said, you're going to be sick. But your soul and its connection to the ascension will assure that, so that you're eating the proper foods for your placement in the ascension with your physical vessel as well. But also, it makes it much easier when we have our teachers, explaining why you can expedite your process by being responsible to your own physical vessels and paying attention to what you're feeling and what you're receiving. And perhaps if you shouldn't drink alcohol, then don't do it, and pay attention to your signs. And it's
Yeah.
all assured at the end of the day. But the only reason, again, why I bring this up is because I know, as well as many other teachers, that it is so pertinent uh, to your to your spiritual growth, to your energetic growth, to your prowess, to your physical body. And also, your physical body needs to be, for those that understand this, it has to be able to vibrate at a certain frequency so that you can walk in to the other dimensions and walk back. It's
Yeah.
there is a method and a reason why this is occurring. And this is in part and parcel the ascension, what we are going through. That yes, you are taking your physical vessel through different timelines and through the ascension. And to do that, the physical vessel needs to be accommodated in relation to the energy to exist in the higher vibratory timelines. So again, you don't go up on the higher vibratory timelines if you don't have a human vessel that is able to stay there. That's why it's so important with this human vessel to keep the vibration up and keep the human vessel at least to the level what you are divinely told to keep it to.
Right. Well, you know how, thank you for saying that. You know how they say, well, this is just what I've heard about vegans, if you're not eating meat and then you could raise your vibration higher. So it doesn't really matter. So it doesn't really matter what we eat. You're just eating what feels right for your personal human vessel yourself.
Um, at the time, yeah, but you're always in transition, most of you, with your diet. You will
Hmm.
find that, some days you can't have something that you eat regularly, but other days you'll be drawn to some chocolate or something, right? But you still need at specific times for the humanoid vessel, what I've known in the past that there are sometimes certain chemicals that you get from foods that assist
Yes.
with the transition at that particular time. So there are things that happen like that, but for the most part, the best thing to is to keep your physical vessel as clean, because then you are existing at a higher level where you can quickly use your energetics to, for example, if the body needed a chemical to complete part of the DNA restructuring. Well, if you're at a higher level, you can just introduce it without taking in contamination, if that kind of makes sense. You can energetically assist the process where you don't need a 4D chemical in the body to do that. Now, I'm trying to keep this, uh, trying to just perhaps develop a perspective that's more readily understood of what I'm trying to say with this, because there is two things, two different ways to perceive it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's going to be a lot of food for thought.
Well, yeah, dude. But hey, everyone, whatever the viewers are doing, just follow your body. If you're still eating meat, continue eating it until you can't or until you're told not to. You need to trust yourself and trust your signs of what
Yeah.
you're doing. And it is assured, for example, go to the extremity. If you're not supposed to be eating meat, and if you had all kinds of signs to stop and you didn't, it will be assured that you will, because you'll just become totally sick and you won't be able to eat it. And
Right.
yeah, so it's always assured one way or another. But again, you can alleviate comforts in the future by following the best practices that resonate with you in keeping your physical body and energetic field up to the highest vibration that you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think this is kind of a good segue to go into the empaths, unless you have anything more that you'd like to say about the energies. Because we tapped on the food, which was really important, and the chemicals and things like that. Do you feel anything else you want to share on any of the energies?
um no, not really. If we do, we could reflect into it as we go
Yeah.
along, but
Okay.
more or less, yeah, I feel good with that. The present energies, as I said, it may linger for a couple more days for some, and just for the others, you're in a holding pattern. So do not make any plans longer than perhaps a few hours or a day out at this time, because you are also divinely positioned geographically at this time in place for very important reasons that you'll come to know more about in the near future. So the thing is, do not restrict it. If you had thought you had plans to go somewhere for the weekend, if you find that totally shut off, that's for divine reasons. Just chill out and just take it easy and know that you're in a holding pattern, and that it's important that you stay where you're at without having to know all the reasons why. So I can say that much. So be neutral, and take the time to uh, do something to a hobby, or be creative with yourself. Detach if you're in an area where there's negativity going around the outside world, with the hustle bustle, the Christmas thing coming up. If you don't need to go out and you're not called, yeah, just keep in a bubble for the next few days until this passes. That's what I suggest. Love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds
That's
good. Well,
good. Well,
then let's go into the empaths, and how that is in relationship to with everything.
Yeah, indeed. Wow. Yeah, this is a good one. Now, I'd like to start off with a comment you just made a bit ago. How did it go? Yeah, you were saying if you're around, someone for 20 minutes and it didn't
Oh,
feel
yes.
good anymore. Yeah, well, that's your empathic ability, right? So, yeah, if you meet someone and after 20 minutes, if the energy is still not high, if it goes low, then well, perhaps I'll move on here right now. That is your empathic abilities, indeed. Um, so let's say, you know, through the course of your life, and it can go back maybe 1 year, or it can go back your entire life right here, right now. You've been introduced to, empath and energy, and you knew that it's a real thing. You've been introduced to it, and you've been given a little bit of information on it, what it is. And yes, indeed, it's a very real thing, but it's very pertinent and totally attached to your divinity. And all of you are empaths, very simply. If you were not, you would not feel any of the energies, and you would not be here, because part of your ascension is energy, and you need to be sensitive to feel that, because it's also part of your development away from what used to be, but it's also connected to your divine prowess to change these negative energies that you felt. And we're coming up to this level where more will be able to, without giving too much on that, where you can create and change these what were once negative things. You can take them right out of the picture.
Well, that would be a blessing.
Wouldn't it? Yeah. It's what everyone wanted. But
Yeah.
so, yeah, being an empath really does not suck. Like, they put out, through the years, you'll see some memes out that, being an empath, you want to just bundle up. No, it's, you were subjected to all different sorts of energies and feelings, and to, you were being trained and taught on the different things and different levels. And for those of you that are empaths, no, you don't have to remain hermits and all of this. Your hermit stage, you're ready to come out of that, and come out of that bubble, understanding that the way you were empathic before, how everybody's energy would make you wonky, turn you sick. Well, no, part of this process is you needed to know that, so that you knew what the energies felt like, the ones you needed to tweak up, especially the negative ones. So you needed to have that energy signature, that frequency, and the sensational feeling of what they were, because this is attached to your divine purpose and one of the reasons you're here as well. And it goes hand in hand with your purpose. So this is actually, you're an empath because of your place in divinity and your purpose here. And that's why you had it. If you were not, did not have a significant purpose like that, you would not be empathic to the degree you are.
I love that. Well said.
Thank you. Um, so, this is the perspective and a consideration for all that are viewing this. Now please understand that you're an empath for a reason and that you can control this energy, and you can do it much more efficiently and very quickly. You do not need to, let's say, be out in a shopping mall and be getting hit by all these dark energies, greed energies, and all of this. You can set up your bubbles and do your tweak up your energy so that it doesn't affect you. And in short order, once you master and do this, which is all in part of your energy embodiment and your mastery, then you can walk in a mall and you can change the polarity of, dependent upon your degree that you're allowed to do it, you can change everyone and you can make them all happy or what have you. But again, what I'm saying is that you're given these sensations, be able to feel the real energy for so many reasons, to apply them, to understand them, to understand how these energies are emotions also that affect others to low degrees. And you you can feel fear, you can feel aggression. For instance, if you look back when you were in 3D as an empath, if somebody got angry at you, holy wow, you feel all that negativity in your heart, and you know that it's a real force, and they might be angry, mouthing off at you out here, but you're feeling actual physical effects in here of that. So that lets you know it's real. But
Yeah.
we are at these levels now that no longer. You know what it feels like, you know what it is, but you also know that now you have the ability to go back to the source of this anger, that guy, and just say, no, no, and change the polarity. And what he got to do is shut his mouth and walk away. And, this is essentially, but it gets much more powerful than that. And it's all about combining everything that you've been taught in your gifts into your prowess and understanding that you have so many gifts, but appreciating, loving, and fully accepting the empathic you. It's so important. It's what makes you, and it is your prowess. And you no longer need to feel all these dampening energies. You have the prowess to change them within you, but also outside of you, and to assist others with your amazing prowess gift that you have. And having said that, we are at the levels that there are certain ones now that are ready to take it to the next step and to begin more of their magical existence here, to begin more of their dream that they always felt that there was something more, that they were here for the purpose, that they love to do magic and they want to do good for everyone. Well, guess what? We're right at that threshold. Once you've had your discipline, you've been learned in so many things, you're ready to start bringing that into creation. And so we are at such a very important part. So embrace your empathic abilities. They are actually your prowess, not a curse, if you will.
I love that. And
I love that. And
really, when you were
really, when
talking
you were
about
talking about
going out into a
to a
mall or
mall or
any space outside,
outside,
is that we can do our own protection too. I know for myself, I do a protection thing every morning, just to protect myself, against anything, but, still be in awareness. I think it's really you're consciously living in every moment, and being aware of the foods we eat, the people we come into contact with, our surroundings and everything. I think that's really important.
totally, again, it is. I'd
Yeah.
like to reply to a question of one of the viewers here, Peliel Medina.
Ah,
She said, higher being smoking a cigarette.
okay.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, I am a higher being, and I wish to expand a little bit on that. The cigarettes I'm currently smoking are natural tobacco, which is, sometimes it can be beneficial to your physical health. But having said this, um, and thank you, a higher being, which I am, I stand in my divinity, and many of you are. We do, where we're a higher being, this connects into our empathic abilities and our energy, where we can counter any negative or adverse effects of this. We can do it, and we simply do it with our mind and our connection into the physical vessel, and assure that to assure, that we rectify. But also, Eliel, I wish to let you know too that we're advancing to higher timelines with this ascension, where you can reverse your aging process, where you can cure any ailment with your mind, and all of these things. And
Mhm.
for I, at this time, for I at this time, uh, I smoke what I'm allowed to smoke, that takes the least energetic effort to overcome any adverse effects. But what I'm smoking is natural cigarettes, which is 100% natural, which is, okay. And if there is any adverse health effects for me, I know that uh, if we make a shift tomorrow, that any of those adverse effects also are eliminated, because we're on higher timelines where you can regenerate yourself and so much more, where this
Mm.
magic's at. And also, one of the reasons why I know this is true is because, several times in the past, for instance, I'd get up one morning, father said, go look in the mirror, and I'm half asleep, I go look in the mirror, yeah. There, like, I'm 50 some years old, but there's a 30-year-old me looking back at me. I said, wow. I said, who's that handsome guy? Or I said, yeah. I said, looked at it and said, thanks, Dad. That feels good. And, also one other part of the process, when I was awakening and being shown through experience the important um, abilities that we really have. One ability was I was a large man, I was agile, but one morning during my awakening, when I was being downloaded with lots of this magical information, especially about being able to change the body instantly in higher timelines. Well, I get up one morning and I weighed probably 280 pounds, and I had a rather large abdomen, but I'm a big man and I'm agile. That even with all that extra weight, I'm still agile. But still, when I go to get out of my bed that morning, uh, I always I had a conditioned force of energy that I would roll and put the momentum so that I could, get up out of bed very quick. And
Yeah.
so this one morning, I just wake up and time to get up, and I use that same momentum, that same force, and I whip myself out, but I go right the closet, and I got to put my hands out so I didn't go through the wall.
Oh my gosh.
I said, what the? I said, what the f? I said, what happened there? And like I said, I become stronger overnight. And but what happened is I looked down at my abdomen, my belly, and there was about 20 pounds at least gone right off of it, and I was 20 pounds lighter. And so I said, "Wow, Dad, I knew then who I
Oh my
was." And
God.
but what was happening is that during that course, I knew who I was then, but then I'm being downloaded with all the information, a whole lot of profound experiences that, as a teacher, uh, divinely, I had to go through to have the experience, so I know what I'm speaking about when I'm teaching
Yeah.
others. So it's part of my divine training on the surface to assist others. But yeah, it was so comical. So here I am with instant weight loss, if you will. I'm saying like, yeah, this is. I said, thanks, Dad, and at that time, I recall that I was introduced, go down to the computer, and then they were giving me a lot of regeneration abilities. We have informing me on that and about how you can reverse the aging process and, all those things that many of you have been already introduced to. But I stayed with that about 20-pound instant weight loss for, I believe it was a day and a half. And, because I recall the next morning, I woke up, I looked down at my belly. Yeah, okay, I got to move slow getting out of bed here. I don't want to go through the wall because I'm lighter now.
Yeah.
But it was 2 days after that, then I woke up and went to get up, and I was very sluggish. And I said, oh, it's back. But that embarked me on a huge cleansing my body process of eliminating, all the chemicals I had in prior to that and detoxing my own body. And very rapidly, I lost weight. I was guided and directed by divinity of what to eat, what not to eat. And
Mm.
also, I was in a rural community where our water, I had our own drilled well, and it was pretty good water. But what I was showing that there were hidden levels of increasing arsenic in it. So very
Mm.
quickly, I'm instructed to go back in the woods, in the woodlands, and guide it to a certain stream where I would get good water, high quality water, to assist with the um, rapid preparation of this physical vessel to get it up where I need it to be in accordance with the divine plan. Sorry, we got I got off track there,
No,
didn't I?
no, that was
No.
great. And thank you for asking that question. I had just taken my glasses off, so I didn't see it. So,
Well, for me and being fully open,
yes, yes.
this is a discussion that I had, and have with council a little bit. I said, here I am supposed to be a teacher and a peer, and here I am smoking a cigarette, which is actually contradictory because I said, I don't believe in them. They're, toxic and all of the nasty smell and thing that goes with them. But having said that, and there's another story we can share about the cigarettes for another interview. I will not get into it at this time. But having said that, no, I use a certain discretion that I'm not taking so many chemicals in when I'm not supposed to be. But I will say this for some, and I have noticed it, and many angels, higher ones, will say this as well, that they smoke cigarettes, but also some of them realize that it's a sort of a grounding agent for them as well at this time, for what it does with the adamantine particles and a stabilizing pacification with the chemical process. What happens here in the front part of the frontal lobes of the brain as well. So, but having said this, no, in the future there'll be no need to smoke cigarettes for any of the angels. And I'm waiting, for the day when, no, I'm not smoking either. And yeah, okay, I'll stop. Go ahead.
No, it's
I didn't
good.
have
It's
one
good. I think it really helps. I think it really helps everybody else that's watching, and kind
get
of.
that.
So Ellie said, "Thank you for that answering that."
Yeah, 100% natural. I think you can see on the bottom of the package there
Yeah,
anyway.
I love. What a great story.
Yeah,
Well,
there's things that come up that contradict sometimes. As I said, with the different levels as we progress, you'll
yes.
find sometimes that something will contradict another, but it contradicts it because you don't have all the dots. That's why it's good not to judge another or jump to conclusions because you could be clearly wrong, what you thought by looking at just two dots without having all of these other dots up here that could totally explain it fully, then you understand the reasoning behind it. So it's good not to be nearsighted and don't put yourself in a place where you judge someone else when you know that you don't have all the facts on it.
Facts.
So it's important to the individual to recognize that. But it's also important, why we should not judge another. There are different levels, but
Yeah.
not to degrade ones that are at the lower level and not judge them that they are inferior. We only recognize that there are levels that they are coming along and they will join us at later times with this. So it's good not to judge because that is narrow sightedness with this. You need to have the most broadest perspective you can have.
Love it. I love it. Well, and then somebody had mentioned, which I would love to ask you this question too, on cannabis. Well, yeah, Ellie had mentioned cannabis. So, what's your thoughts on that?
The thoughts on cannabis, and thank you, Ellie, for bringing that up because it is an important
Yes.
subject. With this cannabis, what you're going to be finding, it's on an individual basis where you will find during the course of this development that even that will be let go of at some point. What I, all out of all hallucinogenic drugs and let's say what's the psychedelics and these sort of
Yes.
things, ayahuasca,
Mushrooms.
even,
Yeah,
yeah, the
ayahuasca.
natural things. Eventually, yeah, when it's time, you will go out of that as well. They do serve, uh, you know, but okay, I'll just go with marijuana. At this time, marijuana is, let's say, divinely beneficial to many, but uh, recognize also that there may be points for you where you go out of it that you don't want or don't need any of it as well.
Well, we're going to probably be getting rid of all that stuff, like you said, anyway. That at some point, it's all going to go, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're all really
Yeah.
humanoid habits and
Yeah.
we're detaching from everything. So bit by bit. Yeah, thank you. That's a great way to say it, Linda. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I want to touch back to something that you had said. We talked about the chemicals and things like that and what we're drinking and taking in. But what about showering? I mean, you've got the chemicals, the chlorine. When I turn
Thank
on my
you.
shower, I can totally smell the chlorine and I'm like,
Oh,
seriously? And you can get there's so many companies that have attachments or things that you can put on there. And I'm actually working with a gentleman on some water that actually it's called G water for God, but that's a whole other story. But that's you can
mhm.
drink it, you can use it on your body. So, but getting back to that, showering. So, what are we to do with that?
Very, very important. And as you just suggested, Linda, is that you can get these filters, yeah, put on your shower
Hmm.
heads. Any bit of that chlorine you can alleviate, the better it is because, when you usually tend to take hot baths or hot showers, but when you have a
Yeah.
water that is warm, your pores on your physical vessels open up Are we still there, Linda? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So, and what happens when these pores on your physical vessel open up wider? Well, guess what? You are getting chlorine contamination into the physical
Yes.
body. You can feel it. For the ones that, you know, um, have not been subjected to lots of chlorine, like for eye example, sometimes I'll go in, very rarely when I have to, go into some of these recreation centers where they get that pure chlorine in there, and I'll come out and I'll just feel dirtier than when I went in because I can feel all the chlorine on my skin, and my beard is
Yes.
almost white. And like, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And I remembered that I didn't think the water was that bad this certain time that I was talking about. I could smell chlorine in it, but I didn't think it would have that effect. And I ended up, uh, I believe, I had that shower in that evening, and it was, I only could last till the next morning that I had to go to another location where there was good water and have another shower and scrub it out. So yeah, the
Oh,
chlorine, when you're washing with it, it will have effects as well. And what your viewers should also recognize that with the human vessel, it's not per se only coming into contact with the chlorine or even drinking it. It is also inhaling it, because when you smell it, it is a gas. And the chlorine gas to the human vessel, it damages. And the damage it does
mm,
is really not repairable for, let's say, 7 years. But during that course of the 7 years, if you're continuously putting breathing it in, if you're around it, you're killing all of the cells in your lungs. And especially, for children that they're putting in these public pools where they
yes.
have the chlorine, and the asthma levels, especially in the North America, with the younger children, these are part of the reasons, as well. Their parents, were subjugated to exposure to chlorine. And when the child's born, well, hey, guess what? A little bit of that was in the child's cells before the mitosis occurred. And so
Yeah.
you're passing it on with that, but it is so poison.
Yeah. Well, now somebody had also mentioned Epsom salts and baking soda. What's your thoughts on that? She was soaking her feet.
Okay. My thoughts on that during the ascension, there are periods where you will or may use it, but I will
Yeah.
also say that there are periods where you may no longer use that in the futures as well. So let's say they are temporary applications of such that you may discontinue that as well in the future. But again, these things are on individual basis, and it is assured that if it must occur, that it
Yeah.
divinely does. But it does not mean that, let's say today, everyone stops having showers in chlorine water. There's an
Yeah.
uh, individual basis with it, and there's a transitional period. But to
Yeah.
affect this thing, this overall getting away and creating the new 5D away from these toxins like chlorine and the aluminum sulfates
Oh,
in your chemtrails. What we
yes.
are seeing is, for instance, in the U.S., I believe the first uh, lawsuit of considerable magnitude has been launched. I believe it's against a city or against perhaps a facet of the U.S. government about, the CDC, the FDA. They knew of all these toxins. They knew it prior to World War II. They knew this back
Yes.
in the late 30s,
Yes.
how toxic chlorine was, because they even omitted it from being used in that war because of the destruction of it.
Hmm.
So they knew this. And having said that, the substantial law cases which can be launched against every government upon the planet that uses it is very
Yep.
extreme. And all it takes is the public just standing behind it, and it's got to go. And in these times, we have higher technology like ultraviolet blue light, these sort of
Hmm.
things that does cleanse the water and takes out, it pathogens to a degree, but any bacterias and things, and these are much more effective, and they're also much more along a natural process that is less harmful to human beings because you are using a different technique of a wavelength of energy to purify the actual water. So we have introduced to the surface these new technologies to clean up the water in the future. But what I may say, these little things that are here now, they are nothing to what is to come and to be so huge to clean up the 5D waters.
Well, I can't wait for that day. Hannah Kroger, she, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she was talking about chemtrails about 40 years ago, or so.
Pardon?
And
Sorry?
Hannah Kroger, have you heard of her? Hannah Kroger? She developed
Uh,
some vibropathic drops and things. She was doing stuff for chemtrails back then.
oh,
So
okay,
pretty
yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I may have. I was shown so much, like when I was briefed, when I was awakened, that a human brain could not just keep it all in there. Many things were put on a shelf, and
Yeah.
but yeah, it does sound familiar, Linda.
Yeah.
And yeah, and again, with those sort of things, is those were things that were seeded as well into the timelines as sureties and
Hmm.
securities to also be brought to the surface and utilized if needed during these cleanup periods. But where we're so close as well, we can bring in what was considered off planet technology at any time as well. But this depends on how we progress with these timelines. If, for instance, first contact will be made in the near futures or not. It may be just again depending to the human populace that we might introduce the technologies again, and there'll be that rapid expansion, but
Mm.
we'll see what takes place. I won't say any more on that subject. Thank you. I got to light my heater. Talk and I can hear you.
Okay. So I want to go back. Ellie had mentioned about ayahuasca and some of the other things about taking that to be able to go to higher levels. And, a lot of people take, the mushrooms and things like that to have that experience in other dimensions and such. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that, it's great to have the experience, but I suggest don't continuously go with it. For me, uh, you are given you're given that experience as an introduction to know, how your consciousness can travel, and also sometimes receive actual information. But let me say that I don't suggest prolonging a practice in doing that, uh, because again, you do not need these superficial influences to what you are, and sometimes they can hinder your progress.
Hmm.
That's I gotta light my heater again. Keep talking though.
It must be cold there.
No, no, it's not. It's a little bit chilly, but
No. Well, and another thought came to me when you were talking about needing certain chemicals. You were saying I had heard that, with chocolate can ground you. If you're doing a lot of meditations, a lot of energy work. I've been given chocolate before to be able to ground, um, and certain other things. So what's your thoughts on that?
well, the chocolate. What I was shown by father, and I distinctly remember this because I actually did not ever like chocolate, and but it was showing the benefits of the raw cocoa in the pure chocolate
Yes.
and how it is actually beneficial to levels and stages of the physical body's preparation for ascension. And that, yes, um, and what I had come to find in preparing this physical vessel, that yeah, there was actually times I was eating some of that chocolate as well because I was guided and instructed to eat it. And I
Yeah.
will say that yeah, it tasted okay. Yeah. So with that, it was given to me that yes, it does. It does serve some sort, in the least. It does serve as being beneficial to certain levels of many's um, physical vessels. And it also, I was surprised, I also required some of it with this vessel. So, yeah, there is a pertinence with it. And anyone that has it, don't ignore it. But don't get the junk stuff where you keep
Right.
putting on weight. Get your good raw stuff. It's expensive, but hey,
Yeah.
it it has so many benefits in it, as well as raw sugar. Raw cane sugar, natural sugar, is beneficial for the transitioning of the human vessel as well. Stay away from white refined sugars or anything that's a sugar substitute, aspartame, all that. Stay away. It's toxic. It's poison.
Oh, I didn't really want you to say that. That's probably my weakness.
Well, perhaps it's time.
Okay, thank you. No, no, I know. Yeah, sugar is that's totally my weakness. So,
Well,
I try to do the healthier vegan gluten and all that, but yeah, so
but Linda, you brought up about sugar being your weakness. It also, if you look at what I experienced, I always loved sugar as well. But what I will say is that the natural raw sugar, I use it. I use it in my coffee, and I do eat lots of it with no adverse effects. It's actually beneficial. It speeds up and it energizes the physical cells in your body to be more efficient. There is no chemical residue left behind from raw sugars like it is from white sugars, which has again chlorine and other additives in it that the body cannot readily more easily break down. When you have the raw natural sugars, it's raw, it's organic, so the body can utilize it to the most benefit and break it down very quickly and eject any anything that's not of use from your physical vessel. But when you have the white sugars and things, these chemicals get into the cells. The body can't break it, the cells can't break it down. Some of them will start depositing them outside of the body into fat deposits and what have you. And it also causes the obesity. One of the main causes of obesity is all the synthesized chemicals that the physical body cannot break down because it's foreign. They're not organic. If everything was organic on the planet, there would most likely be no obesity at
obesity.
all.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Megan asked about coconut sugar. What about coconut sugar?
yeah. If it's
I
natural,
would say
perfect
yes.
too. Yeah, 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 indeed.
Honey, maple syrup, agave. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's all good stuff.
anything
Yeah.
natural is good. Yeah, yeah.
So let's go back into the empaths. Oh,
Uh-huh.
well, we do have a question from Ellie. Any tips on a 16-year-old awakening?
Uh, the first tip is this is a soul thing, a soul awakening. So age does not matter on it. Um, I am feeling, I guess she's female. Uh, it's very important with these females that are young like this to be awakening because they are part of let's say, part of the crystal children and rainbow children as well. They have come with very many important 5D gifts intact. Well, they were, 4D gifts, but they get expanded up here. So, having said that, uh, for do not apply an age to this awakening because it's happening at the soul level, and most of the children and young ones today are awakened to a good degree. Uh,
Yeah.
but also, yeah, don't apply, I suggest, any age limit on this.
Awesome. Thank you for that question. That was awesome. Going back to, okay, electromagnetic account receptive transmitters, we are conscious of like a planet globally. Yes, greater. Yes, yes. Thank you for that. Thank you for all your comments too, everybody. We really greatly appreciate that. We love you. Um, let's go back into the empaths, Rick. We were,
Yeah, indeed. I feel that as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think we pretty much covered a lot of territory in the the next level that you had mentioned that we're in as far as reacting, cleansing the last remnants, the food, chemicals, and all that. So yeah, let's talk more, some more information as far as the empaths and what we can do as an empath at this time.
Okay. Yeah. So you have the empathic abilities. They are becoming much stronger, and they will continue because you need to have this for your divine purpose of what you will be doing. So those of you that feel it very strong, um, it's time to um, look at it from within yourself, and look at it and start getting familiar with the ways that you can take control of it again, so it's not controlling you. But these are very important. So once you have an empath has has stabilized their field so that the energy is not coming in controlling them. For instance, if you get rid of irritation,
Mm-hmm.
if you no longer have irritation and you're an empath, which we all are, but you're in a lineup and you feel irritation come into you, you know it's not coming from you, that it's coming from perhaps a person in a lineup that's right behind you. And what this is, being the empath, here's what I do. If I'm standing in a lineup and I feel irritation, I know it's not mine. I have cleansed all of any control that it has over me. So when it does come, it's for identification purposes. So I say, okay, I'm dealing with irritation here. So the irritation will I will feel it centrally within me, and I will pinpoint where it's at. And if it's a gentleman right behind me, I'll turn to him and do what I need to do to alleviate the situation. Like, if it's, I'm always patient as well, but if he's impatient, maybe he's got irritation and impatience. So, what I apply in each circumstance and situation is different because it depends on that individual as well. And sometimes, if I identify them as going forward, because with me, everyone I meet, there is a reason for it, and I know that. And I assist, as many on subconscious levels as I do on conscious levels. But getting to the empath part of it, so I'm told, I feel irritation, I feel impatient. So immediately, my empathic gift has identified what I need to do to change the polarity and assist this one with and get rid of this energy. Because if I leave this energy there in this guy, there might be someone else comes up behind that's a little bit of negative. Well, guess what? All of a sudden, it's going to start attracting and getting bigger. Then you might have a
Yeah.
big lineup with people start getting in a fist fight and somebody come and butt in. It causes the chaos. So you're given the ability with these gifts to actually identify where that irritation's coming from, look at the person, smile, or just comment saying, "Oh, it's a long line up here, but if we have patience, things will go very quick." And so what you do is you take their mind off of their
Mm,
irritation, and that also
mm.
begins to lift that negativity. But actually, as an empath, what you're doing is you took part of that negativity from them, and you're also changing the polarity of it within you, but it's still attached to them through an energetic stream. So you're able to go in and
Uh-oh. You just froze for a minute. I don't know if you can hear me, Rick. We'll wait till he gets back on. I think it's incredible what he's saying about how and I feel like sometimes maybe we do that unconsciously. If you can feel somebody's irritated, or you just kind of make small talk or have a conversation with them unbeknownst to you of what you're doing. Um, yeah, I think that I know I have done that for myself. Okay, Rick did forewarn me and say that he may lose service, but he'll come back on. So while he's getting back in to the show, I wanted to mention, I don't know if anybody, I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware of the gatherings that he has initiated. I know that he's had done a couple in Canada. He's going to be coming here to the States. Yay, I'm excited. I can't wait for him to come to do these gatherings where we can actually be raising the vibration as well. So I'm looking forward to that. And so if there's anybody that's watching that is in California, it would be great to link up, connect, and so we can actually have a gathering. Rick says he doesn't necessarily need to be at the gatherings in order for these to be effective, but I would certainly like to have him there, at least at ours, at ours. There you are.
hey, there you are.
Yes. He's back, you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were saying if you have this person and you were describing as to what you would do, and I just kind of tailed off to was what I thought, that we would use naturally, but yes.
Yeah, so what you do with that situation, use your higher self, know that you're a divine
Yeah.
being to raise their vibration, and you do it by just getting rid of the irritation. So you identify the feelings you got as impatience and irritation there. So then you know in your brain the areas with that one that you need to switch their thinking about it. So you go with, let's say, the impatience, you say, well, there's a few hairs, just take, you say there's a few in the lineup, for instance, and just kind of take their mind off of that and start speaking about something else or whatever way you feel to do it. And
Yeah.
if they have irritation, it gives you a chance to say that it doesn't serve anything to be irritated. So it gives an opening as well for a short conversation with them. And what they will
Yes.
find while you're
Yeah.
speaking, that very quickly the line has moved, then you're able to say, "See, look how fast that happened, right? No need to be impatient or to be irritant." And so you use your empathic gifts as well as recognizing certain negative things, negative energies out there that you can correct and assist others with, because we don't need negative things, out in the surrounding populace. And especially when you're down on 4D, That's why you got these empathic gifts to, do your divine work and alleviate as much of it as you can when you're out around. It doesn't mean you got to get up and go out every day and go through all the stores, sprinkling all your dust, but just during your normal routine when you come into it, and you can have fun with this and
Yeah.
watch your prowess in your magic. They actually do look at you and they do listen up, because there's also a
Mhm.
transfer of codes and things going on with that energetic exchange, and it is so invaluable to the overall ascension as well. So
I love
I
that.
love that. Yeah.
Well, and I think what you were saying is really important because if we're talking about the energies and how we're supposed to, really staying out of that negativity, how important it is to raise that vibration of that person, right? If we can just, as we're out doing our normal day to day, being consciously aware to be able to raise that vibration. But you just said something about codes, a transfer of codes. So how does that, I mean, I'm not familiar with that. I mean, I am familiar with the sense of transferring of codes, but can you elaborate
Okay.
on that, please?
Well, sometimes when an advanced one, and you know, you come into contact with certain ones, nothing is random, nothing's by chance. If you When you come into contact with one, if you feel there's something different, well, that's because you're divinely told that it is. So, if it's a stranger, then for some reason, you feel to say hi, or even just feel to look at them, or what have you. There is that energetic exchange. As soon as you put your eyes on someone, there is energy being applied to that does have, in the minimum, an effect. But there's also codes, and more specifically, let's say awakening codes. So if we go back to the guy that I spoke, about that was standing in line, he was irritated. I'm speaking to him, and also there's a transfer of codes that I'm working really on so many levels with him energetically. But you all do this, but you. It's very good when you're more aware of actually what is happening with every energetic transaction, um, and every energetic transaction you do, there is always energy there. And you are the empath given this gift because you work with the energies to do this stuff again. And as we keep going higher, you are just going to love your empathic gifts because you realize how important it is, but also how magical it is. And did I get off? I think I got astray
No,
from the original question.
no. Well, I was
Oh,
just asking about transfer of codes. No, and you actually answered that about how
oh,
we can.
Oh, but I'd like to touch, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
The codes again, yes, there's a transfer of codes. And also, I am a catalyst, and I can awaken the Kundalini, for instance. And let's say divinely, that guy that was standing in line, let's say, it was in his divine soul contract that it's time for his Kundalini to awaken. Well, let's say, well, guess what? I just transferred the codes that perhaps in the next few days you'll go through one of them Kundalini awakenings, right? So it's always important, and there's always not one thing happening with energetics. There can be many, a whole array of it. So it's important to follow your intuition and your
Yeah.
guidance, and you have the opportunity to create the change, so to transition the change. So every opportunity that you have to assist another in public and
Yes.
to erase that negativity, well, guess what? Then you are creating the more newer timelines. Because that one, again, that I was speaking to, let's say if I didn't activate his Kundalini, but at least he saw one thing. He saw
Yeah.
by being patient that the line seemed to move quicker. That is ingrained, and he remembers that. And what he might do, you might see him in a store another day in another lineup, and you may see a guy behind him jumping up and down in patience, and you might see that same guy say, yeah, just relax, and have patience. But these will be the confirmations of your work that it is so. Again, that you don't need to take my word for it, but get out there, and have fun with it and do it and practice it. And you'll even wow yourself sometimes because it is truth. And this is
Yeah.
why, I speak so freely and openly about it. I know it's truth. But what I also
Mhm.
know is that you will receive your own confirmations as well that it's truth. And it just
Yeah.
concretes it and allows it to keep expanding because it's all truth. And truth expands while deceit implodes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I like what you said about having fun with it. You know what I mean? And really
Yeah.
seeing the magic that can really happen when you're so conscious of it, as opposed to when the interaction happens, right? And you taking on that or not even doing anything with it. So I love that. Yeah. Beautifully said. Yeah, it works for me. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna keep trying that. But I mean, like I was saying when you were gone, that I feel like it's kind of a. I love people anyway, so it's kind of a natural thing to just to kind of say, hey, how are you today? Or you can tell something's going on. You just kind of really shift that thought, and then they forget all about it. Next thing you know, you're having this whole dialogue, and they're telling your life story, their life story. So it's
Indeed.
it's
Yeah.
really a yeah, it's a
But
beautiful thing.
But may I say, that's part of your divinity for what you are, that they'll open up to you. They'll say, I don't know why, right? But
Yes,
it's your
yes,
divinity because it's prearranged to do that. So yeah,
yeah.
for you to recognize that yeah, there is something more going on than just human relations and interactions. There is a divine thing going on, and it's
Yeah,
very real,
yeah,
and it explains it to the fullest extent that it is so.
yeah, yeah. And I think too, what I just heard too is that, especially since we're trying to raise a vibration, so if you know what I mean, if we could really be so conscious that we can actually do that to help everybody else raise,
Yeah,
you know?
well, we can. Yeah, we,
Yeah.
we have the we have the tools to do that. Yeah,
Yes.
because
Yes.
as
Yes.
being the empath, you target the negativity that's lowering the other's vibration. So you have that divine prowess to eradicate that from them, and then they have to rise as you
Yes.
take that negativity from them. Indeed, and
Yes.
it raises,
Yeah.
the overall vibration. I love going in, to stores, and when I come to the cashiers, I always say, "Hi, how's your day?" And sometimes a little joke. If they're a little gloomy, I'll do a joke to raise their vibration, and you can see the effects around, and you see people, begin to smile where they were frowning, and that is the magic, and
Yeah.
you're changing, yeah, the negative atmosphere into a
Yeah.
much more pleasant one, and it's contagious as well. So you're so important being that empath, but right now, your role as being an empath is becoming so much more important.
Yeah. 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 Yes. Well said. Well said. So, is there anything else you want to say on the empaths that you want to share?
Uh, Only that it's
Any
so
last words?
important. Yeah, only that it's so important, and I'm so glad we had this discussion tonight. Again, to bring a little bit of the awareness and
Yeah.
acknowledgement that it is very pertinent to the reason why you are here, to your
Mhm.
life's purpose, but also to what's to come here very shortly. So, again, what I say is embrace your empath abilities, refine them, and tweak them up. They are a very powerful tool, and you don't need to be an empath that's taking in, all this negative energy and letting it control you. It's time for you to
Yes.
step up and recognize it as being a gift, not a curse.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, I don't have any other questions that, I mean, we could talk about other stories would be great, but I think we'll save that for another day. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
So,
perfect.
Rick, thanks again. Yeah, I say thanks again for being on the show. It's always such a pleasure to have you and just to get this information out there and let everybody know that how important it is for each and every one of us. And, I want to thank everybody really for your questions and tuning in. And it was just really, it was awesome. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Linda, and, and I appreciate this, and I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. And you're such a, and not to butter you up, but to speak the full truth. You are such an amazing talk host, and I
Oh,
just
thank
love you.
you.
And you ask the perfect questions. Again, it's always a full pleasure and so much fun doing these. These sharings that we do. It's so important. So I thank you so much for that, and all of your viewers and everyone that's all part and parcel to this
Yeah.
huge divine unity and what we're doing.
Yes. Well, I love you too, and I thank you so much, really. You're a blessing to all of us, and, being able to help us to raise the vibration even more, and just being privy to that information that we can guide ourselves, and we can all just be a part of this whole journey together. So it's amazing. It's a great ride.
Yeah, it is
Yeah. So
indeed.
thank you. Yes.
So
And
thank
thank you,
you.
everybody. Okay. Go
No,
ahead.
thank you, and I love you. I love you all. Love and light.
Yeah.
Have a beautiful night.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you everybody for tuning in, and thanks for all your questions, your comments. We really appreciate you, and we will see all of you later. Thanks a lot. Bye.